Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Planning Committee. I am Councillor Emma Sidhu and I'm the Chair of the committee. Please be aware this meeting will be filmed, live streamed and will be uploaded to the Council YouTube channel. I'd like to ask if there's any apologies.
Councillor Ahmed.
Okay, in that case, we have apologies from councillors Ahmed, Farmerhand, Mir and Raza.
Okay, I would just like the panel just go around and introduce themselves, please. We start from Councillor.
I'm Dan Bowring, Councillor for Sarn and Brentford Lock.
I'm Councillor Mosley, Councillor for Brentford East.
Councillor Farah Kamran, Councillor for Henwood Park.
Councillor Dani Said for Hounslow East.
Councillor Ghazala Butt for Brentford Ward.
Councillor Tom Bruce, Hounslow South Ward.
Councillor Stroud, Isleworth Ward.
Bill Lee, I'm the clerk. I'm not part of the decision making.
Jane Astbury, Legal Advisor.
Matthew Rees, Head of Development Management.
Hannah Haddad, Head of Strategic Applications.
Zara Roth, Planning Officer.
Rob Heslop, Head of Transport Planning and Road Safety.
Shalini Datta, Planning Officer.
Councillor Gurmel Lal, Heston East Ward.
Peter Thompson, Chiswick Riverside Ward.
Councillor Marina Sharma, Brentford East Ward.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask if there's any declaration of interest, please. Councillor Tom Bruce.
Yeah, thank you. In my capacity as Deputy Leader and lead member for Planning and Regeneration, I've met the applicants for both items tonight, each time with officers in attendance, and I don't believe I have made any predetermined decision on either, so I feel I can sit on the committee this evening. I also have received communication from Chamber of Commerce in support of the Central Park Estate item, and an email from Brentford Voice outlining their position on the first item. Thank you.
Perfect.
I think we've all received those two bits of communication.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Dad.
Yeah, so all the same emails. Also, I have I've met with the developer a couple of times all on agenda item 4, always with officers. And I've also worked with them in terms of their engagement, such as appearance at the area forums and advising them on suitable locations for pop-up events. But this has been, at no point have I shown a determination.
Thank you. And I'd like to Marina Sharma.
Yeah, I'd like to declare that I met with the Hadley Group and had a dinner that was provided by them in September last year, but there's no predetermined from me.
Thank you.
The same as Councillor Sharma.
We should go for the minutes.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry. One other thing. The developer on agenda item 4 also did a project with students from West Thames College, and it's culminated in a Dragon's Den event, and so I declare that I was a dragon.
Okay, any more declarations of interest? Okay. Just go over for the minutes of the previous meetings. Any changes would need to be done? Any corrections? Perfect. Thank you. Right, I'm going to go to the first agenda of the meeting, and that's the Great West Road. Who you speak about?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. This item relates to land at number 980 Great West Road, a hybrid planning application. The scheme is accompanied by an environmental assessment statement and has been assessed in accordance with the London Plan, Local Plan, NPPF, and relevant guidance. The site is 5.6 hectares located within the Great West corridor identified in the emerging site allocation number 118 for mixed-use redevelopment. GSK is underutilized the site since 2024 and has been enclosed by hoarding since 2025. The site sits between major roads with A4 to the south, M4 and Boston Manor Road to the north and west. Boston Manor Park borders it to the north, and the River Brent runs along the eastern side. The northern edge is partly underneath the raised M4 flyover, which is several stories above ground level. This hybrid application includes both detailed plans and outline proposal. The detailed elements would be fixed if approved, and the outline sets the future development framework for the rest of the site. The site would undergo partial demolition and would provide up to approximately 298,000 square meters of floor space across the site and would create new mixed-use buildings with new roads and public realm. The proposal includes 1,522 new number of homes, including 20% affordable housing, 296 co-living rooms, including 37 affordable units, 106 student accommodation rooms with 35% affordable provision, 43,000 square meter GAE of flexible employment space for classes E, F, sui generis, B2, B8, including 10% affordable workplace, 3 hectares of public realm and landscaping. The applicant carried out extensive engagement, including public consultations, co-design workshops, engaging with school and youth sessions, and outreach with local groups and businesses. Also carried out pre-application and meetings with key stakeholders, including the GLA, TfL, the Environment Agency, Kew Gardens, Historic England, the Metropolitan Police, and National Highways. This diagram provides a summary of the key stages in the evolution of the master plan and design as it progressed through the planning process. The work began under a pre-submission planning performance agreement, PPA, ensuring that the emerging vision and detailed proposal align with the council policies and objectives. The second PPA was agreed following submission in August 2025 to allow further discussion and refinement of the proposal when necessary. Also, 5 design review panels were held. The site sits within historic Golden Mile along the Great West Road, an area developed in 1920s that became a major hub for modern industry. This history has shaped the character of the Great West Road and Brentford, with many landmark buildings along established employment uses in the area. The GSK headquarters was completed in 2002 within the 16-story landmark building, making it one of the largest office developments in the UK at the time. Since 2020, changes to the economy and to working pattern led GSK to consolidate into smaller premises, and the site subsequently became available for redevelopment. Here are some photos of the site demonstrating the constraints and opportunity of the site. Because of the size and location of the site, there are several important constraints to consider, including large existing structure, limited public access, sensitivity to surrounding heritage context, including Golden Mile. The site is currently designated as an office location within key existing office location, the adopted local plan. Here are the key major sites around GSK. As shown here, these are the key principles and overall vision guiding the master plan. The approach emphasizes the landmark building and create clear identity for different character area across the development in line with emerging site allocation 118. One of the key constraints is carbon reduction. The core design principle is maximizing retention and minimizing demolition. Extensive testing was undertaken on whether full retention of the existing GSK building could be achieved. This was not feasible given the deep floor plates and resulting residential quality issues. The proposal therefore adopts a partial retention strategy, retaining approximately 90% of the basement as well as structural elements and foundation. This approach is supported by London Plan's circular economy policy and is secured through obligations. As a result, there would be 60% reduction in operation carbon. It's related to the last slide. In response to the site constraint and opportunities, 3 character areas were identified. The urban edge in red, which connected to the Great West Road, the riverside in blue, which creates a new public realm and makes use of the river setting, and the park site in green, which provides local amenities and would establish direct connection to Boston Manor Park. In terms of connectivity with the surrounding area, a number of alternatives were explored to open the site to its surrounding. The preferred strategy is a main boulevard running from Brentford Station through the Gateway Axe, supported by strong east-west routes to the river and improved access into the park. This results in 5 public realm zones named as Underside in orange, Gateway Axe in pink, Boston Palace green in the middle, the lane and riverside, each providing open spaces, play spaces, and distinct character area. These are secured through the parameter plans and design code. ZTV analysis and retention strategy with sunlight, daylight, wind assessment, and many other factors are considered to identify areas of greatest visual sensitivity, informing the proposed height distribution. Here are the proposed buildings. Blockhead, shown in orange, is the tallest building at 180 meter AOD, equivalent 26 stories. The other tall elements range between about 40 meter to 91 meter, equivalent to 8 to 23 stories. Lower rise buildings includes Block L at 19.6 meter, would be 2-story, provide a softer transition to the surrounding area. In achieving an appropriate mixed-use development in line with emerging site allocation 118, the site is moving away from its former single-use office function towards a full mixed-use environment. Following assessment and discussion, the proposed mix and distribution of employment space has been developed. At ground level, active frontage are arranged so that commercial users sit where they can best support local activity. This strategy is shown in the plan. The yellow area indicates flexible commercial and employment floor space positioned to animate key frontage and provide a varied range of workspace types. To mitigate the loss of the key existing office location, this ground floor strategy is essential in delivering full mixed-use environment with high quality employment offer. Concerns have been raised regarding potential impact on Brentford High Street. Accordingly, a 700,000 contribution is proposed through the Section 106 agreement to support the Brentford Art Center and help maintain a competitive cultural offer within Brentford Town Center. Here are the key social and employment infrastructure proposed on site. Nursery on Block B, secured by condition, supports local employment and provides childcare for working family. GP surgery, secured via Section 106, supports health sector jobs and strengthens essential local services. Community and potential of BCSE spaces, Block A and Block I, would contribute 600,000 contribution secured for fit out and capacity building, supporting local organization and community-led job creation. Workspace Block J1 and J2, new workspace offering Class F and B2 and B8 and sui generis, secured through the cascade mechanism via Section 106, arranging access for local and small business. The loss of existing employment floor space is mitigated through the provision of new high-quality workspace. Golden Mile Innovation Hub, 6-story building attached to Block B2, supported by a meanwhile use program secured by Section 106. The Golden Mile Innovation Hub is of great importance as a key mitigation for loss of office space in the key existing office location. Delivery mechanisms are secured in Section 106 to ensure maintained employment through the meanwhile phases to support the delivery of this space. Here is an illustrative view looking towards the site from the north. Block H, proposed landmark would be in green facade. Block H is the landmark 26-story building created through the adaptive reuse of former GSK tower, retaining its structure and foundation to reduce carbon. The delivery of 239 new homes with commercial uses at ground level and high-quality shared spaces, including rooftop, conservatory, and garden. The scheme provides 1,520 new homes, including 342 affordable homes, equal 20% delivered across phases with 10-year split between 70% social rent and 30% intermediate rate, secured by Section 106, also including 37 co-living affordable units. Here is further details of affordable homes and rooms. Details of blocks and buildings within detailed elements have been provided within the application. The new homes, together with the student accommodation and shared living, meet all relevant standards for quality of accommodation and meet or exceed NDSS standard and guidance. The scheme delivers an average of 80% dual aspect homes alongside private amenity spaces and a range of shared open amenity areas. Here are a few images of proposed blocks in detailed elements. Block G, Block I, Block K, Block L, Block M. There are some element illustrative on outline application, Block J1, J2. These sketches shows the proposed landscape. The landscaping is designed to be inclusive, providing a variety of spaces that accommodate different users, both residents, employers, and visitors to the site. To ensure the safety and maintaining quality of spaces, management strategy of the site will be secured under Section 106 obligation. Detailed elements secured 3,734 square meter of children's play space on site and 600 square meter shortfall of the play space would be secured via Section 106 contribution. The proposal retain and reposition key artworks from the former GSK location on site. This slide shows the different access point and potential connection to Boston Manor Park. Access 1, this is only access pointed that scheme would upgrade. Access 2, this shows a potential future access point, but no works are proposed at this stage. Access 3, this indicates the cycle access leading towards the basement and Block A. Access 4, this is the existing access point which remain unchanged. The scheme takes a car light approach, providing limited car parking alongside extensive cycle provision with 46 car spaces and over 20,000 cycle spaces across the site for long stay and short stay purposes. The existing access from the Great West Road and Boston Manor Road would be adjusted and slightly relocated with one additional new access added onto Great West Road. Within the site, movement is organized through a new gateway junction and a second access point on the flyover leading towards the park. Therefore, extensive highway works would be implemented, including relocation of 2 bus stops, which all highway works together with wider frontage improvement would be secured through Section 278, Section 36, and Section 106 agreement with the Council and TfL. Blue badge car parking and car club shown on the site. Basement would accommodate the majority of the cycle parking spaces. The scheme delivers a strong policy compliant sustainability strategy, achieving a 64 carbon reduction, low whole life carbon, and extensive green infrastructure, giving the project significant positive weight. The scheme achieves a fully policy compliant urban greening factor, biodiversity net gain, delivering substantial gain in habitat, ecology, equality across the site. The only shortfall is a minor 0.02 water course unit is fully addressed through targeted enhancement, ensuring overall compliance with BNG requirements. Here is an indicative proposed phasing. The development will be delivered in 3 phases following an initial demolition period. Demolition is expected April 2026. The phasing is designed to deliver the main street network and public spaces early, allowing later phases to slot into master plan framework. The site is not in a conservation area and no listed building is on site. Within 1 kilometer of the site, a number of conservation areas and listed buildings, including Boston Manor Conservation Area, Boston Manor House, Grade 1, and its associate Grade 2 structure on the park, and several nearby Grade 2 buildings are identified. As mentioned earlier, a ZTV map has been used to analyze the proposed building heights and identify the areas from which the new development made visible to help understand potential effect on nearby heritage assets and inform decision on height and massing. As part of procedure, views are tested, and here is the location and list of tested views, which carefully assess each view with Historic England, GLA, and Kew Gardens, and the Council Conservation Team. These key views selected within this presentation where GLA, Historic England, and the Council have identified less than substantial harm to heritage assets. The red arrows indicated the location of the proposed buildings and the site within the heritage setting. For Kew Garden, the World Heritage Site, the identified harm ranges from very low to lower mid less than substantial harm. For Science Park and Conservatory, the harm ranges from low to mid less than substantial harm. View 8 and 8A on Boston Manor House and Park, the harm identified as very low to mid-level of less than substantial harm. View 6 and 7 on Oyster House and Parkland, very low, less than substantial harm are identified. Here is a summary of harms. Due to the identified low to moderate, less than substantial harm to surrounding heritage assets, the Council has carried out the required heritage balancing exercise, giving the considerable weight to the conservation of heritage assets in accordance with NPPF paragraph 212 before weighting this harm against the public benefits of the scheme as required by NPPF paragraph 215. Balancing heritage harm against public benefit is key part of the planning judgment, and a full assessment is contained in the report. Planning obligation would provide contribution to offset the harm caused. Some of the items have not been agreed by the applicant. It is our opinion that the following conditions should be included in resolution to grant if provided to mitigate impacts from the development and or policy non-compliance, including Boston Manor Park access, Boston Manor Park maintenance. The park team has requested Section 106 obligations to improve the access and paths adjacent to the development. This includes the new access from GSK to Boston Manor Park, as shown on earlier slides. Longer-term maintenance is also requested to manage impact of increased use and enable delivery of ecological enhancement and play space mitigation. The second is the volunteer center contribution. Whereas the applicant has committed to delivery and fit out of the community center on site, the community team has requested £600,000 to support the delivery of key programs, services, and activities to enable social cohesion. Brentford Art Center officers consider that the development is likely to divert footfall and cultural activity from Brentford Town Centre. A contribution of £750,000 towards Brentford Art Centre has been requested to support a key cultural anchor and help maintain the town centre vitality. And then West London Orbit works. The scheme regenerates underutilized building previously inaccessible allocated site within the Great West Corridor Opportunity Area, delivering a comprehensive mixed-use neighborhood supported by retention-led approach that secures major embedded carbon saving. It provides very substantial public benefits, including significant housing delivery, 20% affordable housing, major employment growth, an innovation hub, extensive public role and movement, improvement, and enhancement connection to Boston Manor Park and River Brent, and a strong sustainability outcome. Additional moderate benefits arise from high quality design, improved townscape, community infrastructure, and secured environment enhancement. When weighted against the identified less than substantial heritage harm minimized through iterative design, the collective benefits clearly outweigh the harm in line with NPPF paragraph 215. Applying the statutory heritage duty and presumption of favor of sustainable development, the overall planning balance is strongly supported, granting planning permission subject to obligations such as Section 278, Section 36, and conditions.
If possible, we'd like to do a quick verbal addendum. Lovely, thank you. So quickly, this is an update from the addendum submitted and briefly set out in the report. The addendum put forward a series of Section 106 obligations. Whilst the majority of these have been agreed with the applicant, the following contributions are still in dispute. 1, Boston Manor Park access at £650,000. 2, Boston Manor Park maintenance at £1.7 million. 3, community VCSE contribution at £600,000. 4, the Brentford Arts Centre contribution at £750,000. And finally, the West London Orbital request at £600,000. It's the LPA's view that these obligations pass the Regulation 122 tests and are necessary to mitigate impacts from the development. Notwithstanding this, it should be noted that the addendum incorrectly states that the contribution for buses is £1.5 million. This should be read as £1.15 million. Officers request that a decision be made on the recommendation set out in the report if resolution to grant is provided tonight. We also have 2 objections to read out. One is a public objection. The objection is on the basis that Boston Manor Park is a metropolitan open space and should be offered the same protection as Greenbelt, specifically the amenity of this space. Concerns have been raised on the impact of shadow on the park in summer and winter, requesting that a full winter shadow assessment for Boston Manor Park is given. Finally, we have received a formal objection from First Plan on behalf of the Transport Avenue owners and operators by Suez, the contents of which are supported by Day Group, Holcim, and Network Rail, which I'll read now. Suez operates the longest established and safeguarded rail-linked waste management facilities on Transport Avenue. Suez operations are within 210 metres of the nearest point of the application site. Day and Holcim hold a long lease on land at Transport Avenue, which lies approximately 500 metres northwest of the application site. The safeguarded Transport Avenue industrial area, circa 3.8 hectares, is of strategic importance to the London's construction and waste management sectors and protected in the emerging local plan. Separate representations have been made by the Transport Avenue owners and operators, and this additional verbal objection is raised following discussion during the determination of the application. We thank the planning case officer for ongoing engagement on conditions 52 and 86. However, our proposed amendments have not been included, and we remain seriously concerned that our application has not fully assessed the real-world impacts of our operation. The officer report at paragraph 9.419 confirms that the council's own noise consultant, alongside Suez, Network Rail, Day Group and Holcim, considered that the noise and vibration assessment to be inadequate and notes the absence of a BS 4142 industrial noise assessment. If the committee are minded to approve the scheme tonight, thousands of new residents will be living directly opposite a strategic waste and industrial site, increasing the likelihood of future complaint pressure that could undermine our safeguarded operational flexibility, despite the agent of change principle contained within the MPPF, London Plan and Hounslow Local Plan, which is very clear that existing operations should not be unreasonably restricted as a result of the development permitted after they were established. The onus is on the applicant, the agent of change, to provide appropriate mitigation. If committee are minded to approve the scheme, we urge you to amend conditions 52 and 86 to ensure that, in condition 52, require BS 4142 2014 plus A1 2019 or a subsequently amended noise assessment prepared in reasonable consultation with the operators on Transport Avenue. Where significant adverse impacts are identified, a mitigation scheme must be submitted to and improved in writing by the local planning authority, including measures to reduce noise levels affecting external balconies and alternative forms of ventilation and cooling where windows must remain closed. The appropriate mitigation and ventilation measures shall be implemented in full and shall be retained and maintained thereafter. In condition 86, that the odour management review shall be prepared in reasonable consultation with the operators on Transport Avenue. Where mitigation is needed, detailed measures and maintenance of these must be submitted and approved in writing by the local planning authority prior to first occupation. The development shall thereafter be carried out and operated in full accordance with the approved details. These conditions are reflected in full in the Suez email dated 2nd of March and should be put forward to the Planning Committee. We request that Suez, Network Rail, Day Group and Holcim are consulted on the discharge of these details relating to noise and odour or any future amendments to these approved details. Finally, it was reiterated that the Transport Avenue owners and occupiers are not seeking to prevent development. However, it is vital that any development brought forward in this location is appropriately planned, not just for future occupants, but to ensure that critical local infrastructure can continue to operate without restriction. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Dan Barron?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple, so maybe I'll just do them all. So firstly, on that agent of change question, I'm assuming that the nub of what they're saying is I think future residents will object to noise and odour. Is that fair?
I think that's essentially what they're saying.
But you've offered it for approval, so you obviously think it's compliant in whatever mitigations it's got, or that's not a reasonable concern?
So we currently include conditions at 52 and 86 that cover both noise and odour, within which particularly 52, I couldn't work the printer today, so mind that for a second. We have included minimum noise levels within the dwellings in order to ensure that as designed, as the RMAs are submitted for the outline element, that it can be demonstrated that the internal residential quality will not be impacted by the operations at Transport Avenue. We were supposed to include the BS 4142 2014 standard to point A of 52A, which we can do.
What I'm asking is, do you think that the development as it is, it answers that agent of change question, that the agent of change has done enough?
We do.
Great. Then a question on this GP surgery. So there's going to be one, where there might not be one, and if not, we get 3.3 million for primary care somewhere around the area. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So the plan is to have GP on site, which probably would be on Block A and Block D, but in future, if it doesn't happen, and it was the discussion with NHS, it's happened, then the contribution will be happen.
So is the only reason it wouldn't happen on site is if the ICB said, no, we don't want it here, we want it somewhere else?
Yes, it is the discussion happened, yes.
But is that the only reason that there wouldn't be a GP surgery on the site?
Yes, essentially. So there are 2 areas identified for the GP surgery. I think the plan is to enable flexibility, as they are in the outline element, to
Right.
kind of provide services off-site if required.
And this surgery would be for just the people who live in this new development or beyond it as well?
I can't speak for the catchment area, but I assume it would be wider than the development area itself.
Thank you. Just 2 more questions, if I may, Chair. I may have missed it, and I know there was discussion on this before, but are there any proposed e-bike hire bays in the development, or is that something that come later?
Yes, it has been.
Fantastic. And then final one is about the north-south connectivity over the Great West Road. That's a problem across Brentford. This development is obviously a huge opportunity to sort of address that. I also note the comments that we've got from Brentford Voice, who focus on the canal, towpath and Boston Manor Road and Half Acre. They're absolutely correct on that. They're hoping something there could be worked into the Section 106. Is that something that could be possible?
We've already accounted for that within the Section 106. I can hand over to Robert, who can provide a bit more detail if
Thank
you'd like.
Yeah, so there's contributions in the Section 106 agreement towards both the canal, towpath, and for Boston Manor Road, so the link from the A4 down to Brentford High Street. The Section 278 agreement will include improvements at the junction of the A4 and Boston Manor Road. There'll be proposed to be a new pedestrian crossing over the A4 as well from the site. So that's probably about halfway along the site frontage, so between the Canal Bridge and Boston Manor Road. Also cycle and pedestrian improvements on Boston Manor Road to the north of the A4 as well.
Thank you very much. No further questions, Chair.
Councillor Max Mosley.
Yeah, like Councillor Baring, I've got a few, if that's all right, Chair. Just going back to the 106 contributions, I'll probably highlight this more in the debate later, but just wanted to underscore the importance of the Arts Centre. So when you mentioned that there was a 750,000 contribution, that how important that would be for the area, how important that would be for us to secure. My understanding is that that's not necessarily secured, that is a tentative agreement. So let's just start with that.
Thank you. So the LPA has put forward the obligation for 750k towards the Brentford Arts Centre. That is because it's our belief or consideration, professional opinion, that the development and the quantum of commercial town centre uses within development will be a competitor to Brentford Town Centre. And in order to kind of retain or kind of support a cultural initiative within the Brentford Town Centre to enable it to remain competitive with this new development, we've asked for that money to be secured and authority from you tonight to put that within any resolution to grant.
You actually answered my second question, which was what mitigation does it offset? So I had a feeling that that's what it would be about the competition between the 2 places. It'd be helpful if you just outlined why the Arts Centre is important in offsetting between those 2 different things.
So when looking at town centre improvements, we wanted to identify infrastructure within Brentford Town Centre that was more tangible. Having worked within the BPS application, we understand of a funding gap for the delivery of Brentford Arts Centre, and thought that it would be an appropriate avenue for a targeted financial contribution to be made in order to secure those improvements to Brentford Town Centre.
Great, thank you. And I think my residents would agree with that assessment, that would be an incredibly important contribution to offset that issue, which they have written to me about as a potential concern. Moving on to another concern that they've had, which is about GP surgeries. I think we get this more often than
most other concerns about the impact on access to healthcare in the area. And given the size and the potential population change that would come from this project, it's really important for us to understand, as Councillor Baring's already investigated, why, or the impact that we might be able to offset with those GP surgeries. So yes, you've also answered one of them already, which is about how the relationship works with the money. So my understanding is that the NHS would need to apply for that £3 million should they think that it was necessary within the area. I note in the document that they suggested that we should attach a condition to determine the assessment in the area. So that gives me the impression that they haven't yet had an understanding of what the need for healthcare is in the area. So is my understanding correct that therefore we've secured this £3 million in the anticipation that they might suggest that we needed it, but from the impression I get in the document that they haven't yet fully determined that. Is that correct? It is. Great. That's fine. And then, just going back to the competition with the high street, so putting the art centre on just one side and just to investigate that. How do we determine the potential competition? Is there an impact assessment? Does the developer provide their own impact assessment on this?
So the applicant submitted a retail impact assessment. In there, they have quoted a series of appeals and 2 items of case law, which have formed kind of the identification of suitable alternative sites within Brentford Town Centre for the town centre uses. The area we dispute with the applicant is that they have essentially aggregated the units. So the 2,900 square metres, roughly, forgive me, I don't have that number off the top of my head, that is provided of town centre uses on the ground floor strategy. They have looked for a comparable site of 2,900 square metres within Brentford Town Centre, instead of breaking that down into Class E, I, for example, or looking at a suitable space for a brewery in order to look at it in more detail. They've referenced case law and appeal case law, which looks at how the retail impact assessments are applied for food stores and such the like, which we don't believe is suitable in this case. And as such, we don't agree with the outcome of their retail impact assessment.
That's fine. So I'll just finish by saying that my understanding is that you think that there is a bigger impact on market competition, and that therefore the art centre is an important way to offset that.
Yeah, the retail impact assessment says there will be no impact on Brentford Town Centre.
Councillor John Victor.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just want to move the focus a little bit onto potential employment opportunities coming out of the site. At one point, we're talking about a number of between 455 and 635 jobs, and a significant amount of space given over to B2 light industrial and B8 storage and other sites which could be used in the wider educational area and undefined commercial uses. It mentions that there's a market evidence and another survey. Can we get some more detail on that and see on what can we really get out of this site in terms of employment opportunity? The housing is fantastic. The amenities look really good. It looks like a sound build in terms of its green credentials, etc. But we can't lose sight. We need to get some employment out of this site as well.
No, we completely agree. The site allocation isn't specific in setting out minimum quantums of employment space. And so we started from the position of what is currently on site. The applicant submitted a employment evidence base, which included marketing material for the existing office uses on site. And they also provided a market update on what would be kind of viable in this location. They have submitted they've submitted the application with essentially a minimum parameter and a maximum parameter for the employment spaces. So we're largely looking at plots J1 and J2 by Boston Manor, not Boston Manor Road, Great West Road to the south. I'm sorry, do you mind bringing that plan up? On this space, there is a wide range of employment uses, but it is backed up by what they have demonstrated is suitable in this location. This is why we've introduced a cascade mechanism and phase X to the planning obligations or section 106. Within this, we have sought to restrict B2, B8 uses on site and have removed those restrictions, removed that across the whole of the site, other than blocks J1 and J2. So essentially there is a preference or kind of first request for Class E or Class F uses. So those are offices or teaching facilities on J1 and J2. In order to be eligible to put B2 or B8 on site, they'll need to provide marketing evidence and viability evidence to demonstrate that neither offices nor teaching is feasible or viable in that location. So it essentially forces the applicant to look at prioritizing offices and kind of high quality, high employment generating uses within that location.
Yeah, if I just follow, I mean, because obviously we've all seen a number of developments which produce good quality homes, good quality housing with commercial units underneath, and in a lot of places those commercial units remain empty, permanently empty, or never taken up, either because they're not designed properly for the type of commercial activity that could go into them, or they're simply in a place where no one wants to open a business. And I'm glad you centered on the B8 use, because the B8 use, obviously storage, is an easy fix for someone to grab a great big area and use it for storage, which generates virtually no jobs whatsoever, apart from one or two people who operate the site. But it does fill the site up, and that's something we clearly need to keep. And you've obviously got it on your radar, but it is something we clearly need to keep an eye on.
Okay, no, we completely agree. We've put in phase X as well. So that essentially means that we would have preferred the large employment spaces to come earlier in the design development of the outline phases. However, we understand that in order for them to be relevant or kind of marketable, there should be flexibility for the applicant to design it in the kind of understanding of the needs of the operator, future operator. So we're not kind of freezing it in a moment now, and we're allowing the future operator to create a more bespoke use on site to avoid empty spaces.
Councillor Peter Thompson.
Thank you. Again, a few questions. So I understand why residents are concerned when these large rise blocks go up about the harm on the heritage sites in the area, particularly Boston Manor House. So could you perhaps clarify if officers or if alternative schemes with lower building heights were considered that could perhaps deliver all the benefits that are proposed, but without having a 26-story block in the middle of it?
So on one of the earlier slides, I don't know, sorry, you can pull that up with the design evolution. I think actually the sustainability slide with the retention that we had. Yeah, so the scheme has largely been informed by the what's on site at the moment. So it is informed by that embodied carbon analysis. When we look at the 26-story building, the reason why it's been manifested that way or why it's been raised to that height is because of the existing structure and the kind of densities it would support. I think the applicant was minded, as is the council, of the need to kind of optimize the delivery on site. So we did look at lower densities, but fundamentally that wouldn't secure the public benefits we needed for a scheme of this size. Working within the constraints of the kind of existing site structure, they looked at where heights could be produced on site in order to create a scheme that made the most of the existing features like the basement whilst providing the densities needed to create a viable scheme. So alternative locations for height were secured, but there was always an understanding that a certain quantum of the site would need to be provided in order to secure the public benefits, namely the affordable housing, as well as the kind of the fantastic employment opportunities that we now think we have agreed.
So perhaps following on from that, the proportion of 3-bedroom larger homes is small. Do you think that is adequate to create and support a sustainable community on this site?
One of the real benefits of this site is that the family housing that is provided within the proposal are included within the social rented units, which are a kind of an octagonal block within the centre of the sites. So whilst we would have liked to see additional family-sized units on the site, I think we're all encouraged by the fact that those family-sized units are provided within the social rented element of the scheme.
It doesn't really answer the question, though. Do you think there's enough of them?
We believe that we've reached a position that enables viability of the scheme. It's not policy compliant, but the fact that they have been prioritised towards the social rented elements of the scheme is something that we see as a benefit.
Okay, that's interesting. Following up, I suppose the next point actually follows on from what Councillor Mosley was saying earlier. So in the addendum report, it makes quite clear that the applicant's sequential assessment for town centres doesn't really meet with our requirements. So there is, and you mentioned it earlier, there's a concern that it draws people, business attention away from Brentford town centre. And I'm just trying to get my head around how it is you think that giving just under, well, $750,000 for an arts centre actually would seriously mitigate against that. And follow on from that, is that a usual thing that we do? We are potentially taking trade, business, footfall, folks away from Brentford town centre, and we think that building an art centre, theatre, cinema, whatever it is sufficient mitigation.
So I think there's an element of pragmatism that we need to apply within the LPA. So with the Wednesbury rules, we have to demonstrate an element of reasonableness. I think, as with all large developments of this scale, it's reasonable to assume that the ground floor uses would be most beneficial as commercial, and that would translate into kind of those town centre uses. So in terms of taking footfall away from Brentford town centre, we think that the scheme has responded appropriately to the layout, and we believe that their ground floor commercial strategy enables activation of the site. In terms of the Brentford Arts Centre, I don't think, the LPA do not think that it will kind of solve all ills or prevent any movement from it, but we do believe that it will create a comparable cultural offer or help support the development of a comparable cultural offer within Brentford town centre to aid the viability of it.
To push my luck one more time, and just to clarify, that's not a done deal.
No, it's not a done deal, but we request that council committee members today request that as part of a decision.
Councillor Tom Bruce.
Yeah, lots of my questions already been answered. Just really one on the, just for clarification on the embedded carbon that was mentioned, and it appears in the report 9.38, sorry. Just to understand that the majority, or a substantial amount, I should say, 35% of the embedded carbon is in the substructure, the basement, and the rest obviously on top. And it's not clear. It says 90% of that basement will be retained in order to meet that, but obviously some of the structure of the main tower is going to be retained. So what's the embedded carbon percentage then of the entire scheme? I looked again, I couldn't find it, and you might have said it, so sorry I missed it. But
So Zara can follow up with the overall credentials of the carbon, which I think is presented on the later slides. So that's 64%. In terms of the process, the basement has the largest percentage. So if you can see on this area to the bottom right of the screen, they've essentially they did an analysis of each element or block and the cores within that block to understand the embodied carbon within it. So the embodied carbon, forgive me, I'm not an expert, is essentially the concrete and the energy it took in order to make those materials. So the most intensive element was the basement, which they're retaining 90% of. And I think that they also, that includes the piling, which is also a large factor of that. Looking towards the rest of the site, they also prioritise the retention of the C block cores, which creates the landmark feature we have now, and have basically used recycling methods in order to enable the design of the structure that's almost an exoskeleton of the building.
So, so I understand that. My question was more about the total embodied carbon being saved. What's actually written in the report relates to that slide rather than the picture here, because it talks about red, green, and pink. Pink being retained, red being demolished, and green partially. So that was going to be my other question. How does it relate to that picture? Well, it obviously relates to that main picture, which is good. But it's more, I mean, is it 35% overall, 40% of the embodied carbon? That's roughly, just 64% over. Oh, okay, excellent. Good. That was my question. Thank you.
Any other questions, Matt?
I think we've all understood this. I just want to be really, really clear about that 750,000. Are we suggesting that because it's not currently sorted, is it therefore possible / advisable for the committee to attach that as a condition, which we will come to in the debate? But is that correct, that that is possible for us as a committee and potentially advisable given what you've outlined?
Sorry, Kat, so you can't do planning conditions outside the red line boundary, so it wouldn't be a case of applying a planning condition. It would have to be done through a Section 106 legal agreement. The heads of terms are there. Technically, as part of this process, within the recommendation, you are delegating authority to negotiate the exact figures of the Section 106 agreement to Vincent Lacavara. Notwithstanding that, we can happily keep members updated with the progress of that. And if there are outstanding issues, then it may even have to come back to planning committee, given all of the concerns have been expressed during questions.
No, again, sorry, forgive me for always trying to be really clear on this, but so when we come to debate, just as part of the process, we can outline and say that this is incredibly important to us, but it is still a delegated authority. So that's the limit of our ability to sort of strengthen that as part of the committee.
No, I need to be clear that if you make it clear as part of views that is what has formed your decision, then we will not be making a decision without that in there, without it coming back in front of members. So I'm making it sound like we can change what you've said afterwards. That's not the case.
Fine,
we need to be very clear about how we deal with that.
Okay, any more questions? So we've got no speakers on this one, so we can go straight into a debate. Okay, who would like to go first? Councillor Max-Mosley.
Sorry, I feel like I've just gone, so I'll just sum up my. Apparently, well, I'm not the only one, am I? Let me just start by saying that the old GSK site, as we would call it, was a source of pride for me locally, driving into the area and seeing a huge international corporation proudly in our area. So I just wanted to start by recognizing a degree of sadness that obviously they have moved away and that we are here talking about turning this into homes. And yes, to underscore that, that would have been in a way a sort of ideal. But it is, clearly the case that they've moved on, and we need to think about the future of this site. It is currently unused, particularly large, and in a complicated location. Residents often say that we have too many new flats and too many developments, and I will always take this opportunity to politely push back and disagree with that and say that the size of our housing waiting list is ever present in our minds as councillors, the need to build homes when locations like this come up that are on like I said, a complicated site where a developer is able to build a lot of homes on a challenging location. It is a good thing. Otherwise, this is a potential area that could be forgotten. And like I said at the beginning, something that I was proud of seeing may suddenly become quite the opposite, where it is a sad indictment of businesses that have moved on. So it's good that we have arrived at a situation where there are homes being built here. Clearly, there are concerns about its size and massing. People are often concerned about this. Like I said earlier, there is a housing need. So to me, that is entirely balanced against a proportional need for trying to build homes here. What is more reasonable for residents to be concerned about, and for us as councillors to scrutinise, is the impact of these projects locally. We've investigated already GP resources, and I'm satisfied that there are sufficient resources for us to be able to offset those, and the NHS to apply for to then receive the money for us to be able to offset that issue. We have investigated already the market competition element of this. I will just stress that I'm always in slightly two minds about this. As an economist, I'm quite keen to point out that a thriving local economy is based on market competition, and I'm quite uneasy at the idea that we are going to, as a local authority, deny potential commercial space to be created because existing places are there already. It doesn't quite sit well with me. And given the fact that this is a large residential project, I think 980 residents, like Brentford Voice said, are certainly going to help create enough footfall for us to be able to have a thriving business centre in Brentford and also in this location. And I'm every confidence that we will be able to deliver that. However, it is clear in the National Policy Framework document that we must consider this as a potential concern. So that is why we'll just finish by saying that £750,000 mitigation to secure a art centre in Brentford is therefore something that I'm very keen on. I think is very important. And while I have now understood that we can't attach it as a condition, I will strongly underscore the need to secure that money and say that I will be voting in favour of this proposal on the understanding that we will be securing £750,000 for a new state-of-the-art art centre in Brentford. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd echo a lot of what Councillor Mersley just said. I think we, like every other London borough across London, we just need more housing. This is going to offer us 1,522 new homes, 506 student accommodation, 296 co-living. It's an enormous number of people that we're going to put onto a site. I don't quite miss the corporate headquarters. I mean, corporate headquarters are a thing of the past. They sort of died a little bit. You can't fill them now. I mean, sadly, I know it's a landmark site, but nobody wants large office space. Equally, and this is good because it does recognise that there was a tendency in the past to convert these office buildings into accommodation. And this recognised that that's not a suitable way to do it. These buildings were built to be offices, not built to be homes. So at least we're not trying to shoehorn people into unsuitable buildings. We've recognised that, and we're building proper homes. Not as many of them are affordable or at social rent that we'd like, but we know why that is. There's got to be an affordability element to it. And I think from reading the papers, this is giving us as many truly affordable and social rent properties as we could reasonably expect for this site. I asked about the employment. We do need employment in the borough. This is an opportunity area after all. And the officer's response was promising. And hopefully if we deliver on that, we will get some high quality, meaningful jobs coming into this area to fill the site. I'm not quite as despondent about Brentford's current town centre. I mean, just simply with all those students coming into the area, I suspect the uplift for the pubs and bars in Brentford is going to be quite good, despite I did note that one of the objectors in the thing did think there'd be a lot of antisocial behaviour coming from students. I find that hard to believe, but it's producing everything. It's designed to a high standard. It's got a low carbon footprint. It's got a 10% biodiversity gain. We've got a net gain of 50 trees. And one of the things we often pick these developments up for is, for example, the lack of outdoor space. This is offering us 3,734 square meters of open space. It's offering us a nursery. It's offering us a GP, and that's the other things that people complain about. Where are the doctors? This is building one. Where are the nursery places? This is offering one. The officers have outlined a number of conditions, all of which are very sensible, all of which address concerns that I know that most members of this committee would have. If we can get those conditions put in, this is a great use for what could have just been a fairly unpleasant rundown site. And I think it's forward looking. It really does take the opportunity area and make it even more of an opportunity area than it ever was before. And I will certainly be voting in favour of it.
Councillor Dan Barron.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor Stroud-Turp's general comments on this application. I also agree with I think Councillor Moses, you speak for the entire committee when you talk about the importance of the Arts Centre and the contribution to it. I just want to make some comments on the issue with Brentford High Street, and so almost look at it from a different perspective. This is, you know, when you add up all the students and the co-living, it's sort of 2,300 homes. That's thousands and thousands of people. Now, to walk from this site to Greg's, which my residents tell me is the undisputed centre of Brentford High Street, it's about a 10-minute walk. So I think what is really key is, you know, it's the points that Brentford Voice raised, which the transport team have agreed on. It's about the connectivity on the towpath. It's about the Boston Manor Road half acre, because you've got thousands and thousands of people moving in, and it's about making it easy and inviting for them to get to Greg's. Other sausage rolls are available, but to get to the high street. So I think if we can nail this S106 with the towpath, Boston Manor Road and half acre, and I have every belief that officers will achieve that. I think this is going to be really good for Brentford, as well as being a great development in its own right. So I'll be voting in favour.
Councillor Tom Bruce.
I'm going to say the immortal. Yes, I agree with Councillor Stroud-Turf and Councillor Baring and Councillor Mosley. I mean, it sounds like we're, you know, very much in agreement of the very many positive things that they've all said that are coming from this scheme. It is making sure some of those key things that we've mentioned are right, making sure that employment is correct here, making sure that that connectivity is right, making sure that links and the links with the town centre, but there is something in the town centre to go to. There are lots of things already, but the Arts Centre is going to be absolutely crucial to that. I mean, I'll say, you know, I'm from Heston and live very close, or grew up very close to the A4, but obviously further west. It's been a bugbear of mine all my life, this road through Hounslow, because it's fantastic at taking people east and west, but getting north to south is incredibly hard. It was when I was growing up, it still is now. And, you know, this site and others along it, particularly in this section of the A4, needs to be much easier for people. It will bring people from the town centre up here and through into Boston Manor. So highlighting the fact that those potential, that new access into Boston Manor and retaining the two that were mentioned already, making sure that's easy, and bringing people from the north side down south into Brentford town centre is going to be very, very important. I'm very pleased to hear the significant about the embedded carbon that is being retained within the development. I think, you know, there are lots of sustainability pluses here, and that is a very significant one. I can imagine it would have been incredibly hard to look at this site and think, how can we make the retention so, you know, significant in a sustainable way? Yes, the majority is going, but actually that's not where the majority of that embedded carbon is, and I think that's really, really important. Yeah, a huge amount of positives here, and I would wholeheartedly support this.
Councillor Peter Thompson.
Thank you. I think we're nearly there with this application. I just think it could be a little bit better. Clearly is an important, iconic site. It was great. It was great to drive. It is great to drive past. It was even greater when you occasionally got invited in. Amazing place to work, but the world's changed, and I think we're all committed to the redevelopment of the site. I think no one wants it to be run down and the rest of it, as Councillor Terp said, but unlikely to happen given its location. But having read the report, pondered it over, asked questions tonight, I still think it could be better. I can't ignore the heritage impact, just because the word, vanilla wording, isn't it? It's less than substantial impact on the visual stuff. But if you look at it carefully, that doesn't mean it's minor. It's odd planning phrase to use, isn't it? It doesn't mean it's important. And that's why the guidance says that we have to give it considerable, these are their words, not mine, considerable importance and weight. I think it could have been lower. I'm not particularly convinced with the argument that because the basement seemed to be strong enough, we could build up. So the scale and the height does bother me. And I think alongside that, it's not good enough to say we're not particularly happy that out of the 2,000, let's face it, out of the 2,000 houses, there's 100 that are affordable. Most of them aren't. Most of them are for students. It's not, I don't think, creating a balanced community. And I'm still not getting my head around the potential impact. It's very clear that in the addendum that it doesn't meet the tests for town centre use, and the officer acknowledges that. I'm not convinced that students these days go in large numbers to pubs. I've got 3 at university at the moment. I think the world's changed on. It did when I was there because we could afford it, 60 pence a pint up in Manchester, but the world's quite different now. And the idea that this sort of hundreds of students will be sort of, coming down to Greg's, I don't know, hopefully. So I could be wrong. So I said there's so much I would support in the application, so much that is, impressive and well designed, and the green space and the green credentials of the site. But I'm not going to vote for it because I think it could be better. And I think on balance, I think, as I said, we could just perhaps have got something a bit better that we'd be prouder of in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Dunbar.
Unless anyone's got any comments, I propose that we approve this application.
Excellent. We can go to the vote then, and all those for 4, please put your hands up. And against?
That's been approved by a vote of 10 for, 1 against, no abstentions.
Thank you. We can just change to the next agenda, the Central Park Estate.
Good evening, everyone. This is going to be a short one. The next scheme is Central Park Estate on Staines Road. This application is being presented to Planning Committee as a major application constituting a departure from adopted development plan. The planning application is being recommended for approval, subject to recommended conditions, completion of Section 106, Section 278, Section 38 agreements, GLA Stage 2 referral, and referral to the Secretary of State. The proposal is for 4 industrial units within B2B8 use class with ancillary offices. Supporting provisions would also include service yards, landscaping, parking, cycle hub, cafe, public realm improvements, and community amenity spaces. The site is located at the corner of Staines Road and Green Lane. Staines Road forms part of the strategic road network. It is also located within the Heathrow Opportunity Area. At present, the site comprises 4 acres of largely undeveloped greenbelt land. The site is bounded by TPO trees along its edges and few within the site. A car park area exists to the southeast corner of the site. Hounslow Heath is to the south. River Crane Corridor is further to the west. There are industrial development to the east and across Green Lane to the west and northwest. The site forms part of the existing Central Park Trading Estate. The existing entrance is from Staines Road and the exit is on Green Lane. Some few images of the site at present. In considering this application, key policy considerations have been the NPPF changes related to the Greenbelt and Greybelt sites and the emerging local plan, alongside London plan and the current local plan. The principle of development is acceptable. The site meets the test for Greybelt site, and development would not be considered inappropriate, subject to planning considerations and obligation. The site is recommended for de-designation under the emerging local plan as it is identified to be a poor contributor to the Greenbelt. The site is also allocated for industrial development and would be designated as locally as an employment land in the emerging local plan. In terms of employment, the scheme is estimated to provide 131 construction jobs and over 250 operational jobs. As part of the scheme, an affordable workspace contribution in lieu has been requested for £500,000. In terms of visual impact and character, the scheme delivers a good quality design with a strong landscape strategy and is responsive to its context. Alongside its operational requirements, it provides well-considered spaces for the occupiers of the site, as well as public amenity provisions, such as a cafe, cycle hub, and pocket park toward the northwest corner near Clements Court, better connections to Hounslow Heath, and improved public realm overall. In terms of highway and transport enhancements, the scheme would deliver improved public transport connections and highway improvements. This would include 3-meter wide cycle and pedestrian connections on Green Lane, e-bike provisions, improvements to existing cycle infrastructure on Staines Road, signalized crossing improvements at the junction of Staines Road and Green Lane, and also at the Green Lane exit. Bus contributions have been requested in discussions with TfL to an amount of 690,000 to improve bus capacity to the site. Active travel initiative contributions have already also been requested to the tune of 250,000. Elevations. Some of the draft heads of terms have already been discussed, mainly in terms of transport. Additional ones would be employment and energy. In terms of energy and sustainability, the scheme is a net zero scheme. It would opt for a BREEAM Excellent rating and also EPC A+. In terms of its ecological impact, the impact on Hounslow Heath and the wider Greenbelt has been considered and appropriate mitigation sought. No material concerns remain in the long term. While some loss of trees is expected, most of which are low quality, however, the scheme proposes 145 new trees on site, which upon maturity would have a high tree value. The scheme would also deliver an urban green factor of 0.4. BNG requirements have been maximized as far as possible while retaining viability on the site. Any shortfall in meeting the minimum 10% gain would be achieved through offset credits. That's about it. Any questions?
Has it done, Baron?
Yeah, I'd just like to understand a bit more about the biodiversity and the urban greening factor. So looking on Google Maps appears to be a sort of a lot of green that we're building on. But could you just explain? So you talked about the new trees. What else are we seeing in terms of biodiversity, and could you just explain a bit more about the urban greening factor as well?
So in terms of urban green factor, there is no requirement for industrial development, mainly B2B8. However, the site still delivers 0.4, which is usually expected to in commercial developments. In terms of improvements on site in terms of green infrastructure, we'll see obviously a very high planting, native trees, shrubbery. There will also be green infrastructure systems, drainage systems, retention ponds. There are also going to be green roofs, green walls, and also an enhanced drainage strategy to support the entire site.
Any other questions? No, we've got no speakers, so we're going to go straight into a debate. Councillor Gamal.
Chair, we're clearly heading towards the other end of the borough now. So, I go past that site quite often, so I know it very well, and it's ideally suited for the application that's been put forward to us. And I'm also equally glad about the extra 131 construction jobs and 254 operational jobs in there. Is there any way we can put some requirement in terms of how many houses or residents will benefit out of this? Or will there be any sort of like apprenticeship schemes that can be gouged out of this sort of construction jobs? Is there any possibility of doing that? Otherwise, the plan itself it's very good, and usually industrial estates are quite barren. Right? They look really, really awful. So this one, looking at the drawings, etc., are much more pleasant. And adjacent to the site, you've got the golf and the children's play area. So there's a lot of greenery in that area, but it sits on an industrial estate. It's adjacent to a industrial estate. So I think it's ideally suited. But I'd love to know whether we can just tweak those little job things.
The applicant does estimate a lot of the expected jobs would be towards the local residents. We would also have an employment plan in place to ensure that the right numbers are secured.
And the word apprentices,
that would
is there any apprenticeship schemes that can be delivered from this?
That would be part of the construction training program.
Councillor Dunbar.
Yeah, seems fairly open and shut to me. So I think unless anyone has any other comments they want to make, I propose we approve it.
Is that you moving to the vote? Yep. Is anyone second? Yeah. Okay, all those for 4, please put your hands up. Thank you. And against? None. And sustained? None. Thank you.
That was a unanimous vote, 11-4, none against, no abstentions.
Thank you. We have one more thing which is not on the agenda. Nathan is just going to give us a quick presentation of what the Hounslow Town Centre was going to look like with the application which is now being withdrawn.
Madam Chairman, sorry, I'm conscious I'm new to this, and I may have missed the email, but from what you just said, we're now going to consider an application that's been withdrawn.
No, it's been withdrawn. They're just going to show us what the application was.
So we are considering, we are discussing an application that's been withdrawn.
We're not discussing. Nathan
We're
is
just being presented.
presenting it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And good evening, members. Yeah, it's just to provide information to councillors on the 2 applications associated with the redevelopment of the Treaty Centre. As the Chair said, they have both formally been withdrawn. Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. So on the screen at the moment is the description of development for both applications. Now, the main hybrid application was for the complete demolition of the Treaty Centre and the associated multi-storey car park, and the severable phase redevelopment, comprising in detail phase 1A, the partial retention of existing retail floor space front in the high street, phase 1 in detail, new build to rent homes, new public realm and flexible commercial space. In outline, phase 2, new homes, new public realm, cultural community floor space and flexible commercial floor space. In outline, phase 3 was for new homes, new public realm and flexible commercial floor space. And the second application was for a standalone application relating solely to phase 1A. This shows the location plan and site code context, which I won't discuss in detail. This is a breakdown of the detail element of the proposal shown in blue. So starting on the right-hand side, phase 1 would have comprised 472 build-to-rent homes, commercial, business and service floor space, and then publicly accessible open space. For phase 1A, which is the units fronting the high street, this phase would comprise the partial demolition and rebuild of the rear of the retail units, fronting the high street to create a service yard and altered access from Bell Road, resulting in a reduction of Class E floor space from around 5,500 square meters to 2,700. This is a breakdown of the outline element shown in orange on the plan. Phases 2 and 3 would comprise up to 907 homes, cultural floor space in the form of the cultural hub, commercial, business and service floor space, and publicly accessible open space. This was the proposed illustrative CGI for the whole entire scheme. And this is the illustrative site-wide ground floor plan. Starting on the right-hand side, phase 1 would provide commercial floor space around the edges of the site. In the center is phase 2, with the yellow indicating the position of the cultural hub. The new public space, Treaty Green, was also proposed within phase 2 at the center of the site. On the western edge, the left-hand side, is phase 3, again with commercial frontages around the ground floor. And then car parking is proposed or was proposed to phases 1 and 3, as well as on the new Bell Lane, which is between phases 2 and 3, for a total of 75 public spaces across the site. This is the illustrative first floor plan. Within phase 1, the residential properties begin at first floor level, whereas in phase 2, the first floor is comprised of commercial and retail floor space. Now, officers identified a number of areas of policy conflict within this proposal, and the screen now shows the extent of the 15 reasons for refusal. The applicant failed to engage with the local planning authority to resolve the issues that we had identified here. And subsequently, the application was placed on the agenda for committee this evening with a recommendation to refuse the application, which would have been put forward by officers to members. Now, just to go through these reasons in a bit more detail, the first being the town centre vitality and the severability of public benefits, including the failure to comply with the site allocation. Now, the development would have failed to deliver a town centre-led form of regeneration, resulting in a predominantly residential-led scheme that would undermine the vitality and viability and economic function of the metropolitan town centre. The inclusion of legal and conditional severability within the description of development would also have undermined the delivery of public benefits associated with the outline phases, including the cultural floor space, public realm, commercial floor space, and amenity provision. Number 2, affordable housing. No affordable housing was proposed, and the applicant failed to demonstrate that this represented the maximum reasonable amount that could viably be provided on site. Residential quality, the development, by virtue of the poor daylight and sunlight, the separation distances, insufficient external amenity space, and the failure to ensure appropriate portion of dual aspect units within the outline phases through the design codes, would have resulted in an unacceptable quality of accommodation. The proposed housing mix, by virtue of the over provision of studios and 1-bedroom units with very limited 3 bedrooms and no 4-bedroom units would have failed to meet local housing need. Design and appearance, including the impact of the proposed scale on neighbouring properties, the development by virtue of its scale and massing, the quality of the external landscaping and public spaces represents an overdevelopment of the site, resulting in poor design quality and townscape impact, and would harm the living conditions of neighbouring properties. Safety, security and counter-terrorism, the applicant failed to demonstrate appropriate measures to ensure safety, security and to mitigate against the risk of terrorism. Sustainability, the development failed to demonstrate compliance with the London Plan energy hierarchy. Aviation impacts, the applicant failed to demonstrate the development would not adversely affect aviation operations. Heritage, the applicant failed to demonstrate that the development would have preserved the setting and outstanding universal value of Royal Botanical Kew Gardens and the assets within it. Air quality, the air quality assessment failed to demonstrate that future occupiers of the site would not have been exposed to high air quality levels or that the development would not have worsened local air quality. Transport impacts, in the absence of a robust Transport for London compliant traffic model, it had not been adequately demonstrated that the proposal would not result in unacceptable impacts on the wider transport network. Cycle parking, both quantitative and qualitative concerns. Car parking, the reduction from 622 to 75 spaces would harm town centre vitality and viability. Delivery and servicing, insufficient information was provided in respect of delivery and servicing to demonstrate the proposal would not give rise to adverse impacts on highway safety. And finally, the failure to secure a Section 106 agreement to mitigate against the harm caused by the proposal. The applicant was informed of these reasons and the application was formally withdrawn from determination on the 20th of February 2026. Are there any questions? Yeah,
Why didn't you like it?
Councillor Darren Bowen.
So obviously, complete substandard application. Do we know if they plan to try again or what the future might be? Because obviously it's a very important location.
Yeah, we don't have any of that information available. They did make some suggestions to us about what would be happening with the site moving forward, but I don't think it'd be appropriate to share that with members. It was given in confidence, but we haven't been re-engaged in terms of a PPA discussion yet. And there is, unfortunately, no proposal in front of us at the moment.
Councillor Passmosey.
Similarly, did we get a financial viability assessment?
Yes, we did. That was part of this reason for refusal on the affordable housing. So the applicant did submit an FEA. They stated that it was around 100 million deficit, so they wouldn't be viable to provide any affordable housing on site, a significant deficit anyway, which we would have had to question the deliverability of the scheme with a deficit of that size. The issue is that once they submitted the application, they didn't engage with our surveyors who we'd appointed to review it. So BPS, who we go to for every application, they were appointed to review it on our behalf. They reached out to the applicant's representative and they weren't able to get the additional information they needed to make a robust assessment. So the refusal reason would have been that they hadn't demonstrated it was the maximum amount. I mean, the numbers did suggest that it was a significant deficit. So we would imagine that it would have probably been in a deficit and it wouldn't have been viable to provide any affordable housing. So that reason may have changed if they had engaged with us. That being said, zero affordable housing means there is a complete lack of benefits on that front. So we would have had to take that into consideration within the planning balance.
Then, Chair, I will just say that I'm disappointed not to have been able to have my first rejection. And what a shame.
Councillor John Strait-Turp.
Yeah, notwithstanding, we could probably sell this to a university to use them on their planning courses as a case study. But what slightly concerns me about it, this is obviously a very, very key site in the borough. It's right in the very heart of the borough. And for all the reasons that you've come down, and absolutely right reasons for not even considering it, it does make me fear that can anyone develop this site? We want to retain the commercial viability, absolutely. But to make the site affordable, we're probably going to have to put quite a lot of housing on it for someone. We've clearly got to retain a fairly good chunk of car parking to maintain the commercial viability of the centre. Have we sort of made this site almost undevelopable? Developable?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, Councillor. There are lots of consideration and layers to this scheme. They're obviously with the existing premises, it's underutilized. It's not working as well as we would hope. They have the art centre in there, which is a benefit. We're then expecting it to re-provide the art centre. We're expecting lots of open space to be provided by the allocation. As you said, a high proportion, 9,500 square meters of retail was expected on this site and a minimum of 750 homes. So there are lots of overlapping considerations. It's difficult to say whether it is buildable based on the questions that you've said. Given the information we had in the current market, the scheme that was presented to us wasn't buildable. So we would have to work with whoever comes forward to redevelop the site to make sure it is viable, provide the benefits we want, as well as the cultural hub, the public space, the play space, and all of those different elements.
If I might add as well, the site is allocated in our emerging plan, and there has been a viability assessment to go with that. Obviously, site context adds an extra layer to that, but the scheme was brought forward without a developer on board. And so with density, you don't necessarily get improved viability. So the taller buildings are, the higher the build cost is per unit. So it may be that further opportunities to develop the site would need to look at lowering those heights in order to ensure that the price per square foot of the units are actually comparable to the sales values. So it might be that a lower density, like the 700 units within the site allocation, enable the buildability of the site. It should be noted that our regeneration colleagues are now exploring ways to support development on this site, and I believe that will be forthcoming.
Yeah, just to say, I mean, I've previously publicly made my position clear on this. We're not discussing it tonight, so I think it's appropriate for me to just say a couple of things. I agree with what's been said tonight, and thank you for presenting what would have been the application and the reasons why. On your last point, John, and to add to that, I mean, there are examples across London and across the country where this sort of scheme, this sort of size, previous type of building that it is at the moment have come forward and has been built out and has been successful. So, you know, that's not to say it works in every case, and clearly they couldn't make it work, but it can do. I have no doubt about that. This is a significant site for the town and the town centre and the borough, and it needs to be right. And this clearly isn't that. And I know we can't say, we're not allowed to say what the current situation is, but I'm hopeful that in the fullness of time, something much more positive will be able to come forward here and deliver something that the residents of this borough, the town, and this borough absolutely deserve.
Councillor Peter Thompson.
Just an observation, really. You know, over 40 years ago, people like us sat around a table like this and approved the demolition of solid, firm Victorian buildings, and they built the treaty centre, which 40 years later is going to be demolished. And as we're discussing, who knows what goes there next. All I would ask is that whoever it is, if it's ourselves or those who could again come after us, that whatever they approve, perhaps it could last longer than 40 years.
Any more questions? No. Okay, thank you, Nathan. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, just the addendum report. Can we note that, please? Noted. Okay, any other business? There's none. The date of our next meeting is the 9th of April. Good night, and thank you very much.